There's a long dormant piece of me that so very badly wants out.
What are you still doing here, old man?
I'm gonna fuck you up.
Hey guys, Smiling Reviewer here, and today we are going to talk about Nobody. Nobody is an action film directed by Russian filmmaker Ilya Naishuller. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I hope I am. And it's about a seemingly ordinary family man who's forced to bring back a past he tried to bury in order to protect his family. I was looking forward to this movie for a few reasons, one of which was the choice of director. This is the second film from director Ilya Naishuller, his first being a very unique action film called Hardcore Henry that came out in 2015. Hardcore Henry was filmed entirely from a first-person perspective, which I thought had a lot of potential to be really sloppy and awful, but I was really surprised by how well he was able to pull it off. It definitely wasn't a perfect movie, nor do I think many people would have enjoyed the whole first-person gimmick, but I thought it was helmed really well, and it was such a creative and fun movie that I couldn't help but just appreciate his ambition and dedication to that style. So after that, I was really looking forward to see how he would helm any other future projects. Nobody is definitely a much more traditional action movie. However, Naishuller's approach to this movie had the same fun and creative passion behind it that Hardcore Henry did. I loved the tone of this movie. I felt like this movie did a good job at being a bit ridiculous and fun, but while also staying grounded and not completely leaving the realm of believability. It was just such a good time, and it never tried to be anything more than a good, fun time, and this is really reflected in the dialogue, the acting, and the soundtrack. The other reason I was really looking forward to this movie was because of its main star, Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk has to be the last person I expected to be the star of a John Wick-esque action film, and I'm really happy to say he pulled it off fantastically. The film really utilizes some wide shots during the action scenes because it's evident that they wanted you to know Bob Odenkirk is the one doing the action himself, and he is indeed doing it himself. But I'll get more onto that at the end of the video if you're interested to hear about it. Having Bob Odenkirk play this role of a nobody with a hidden dark past was such a good subversion of expectations that worked especially well because of this casting. Odenkirk is known for playing comedic, sometimes oddball and wimpy type roles, but he's probably most known for playing Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul. And that's why this casting worked so well, because nobody would have expected Bob Odenkirk to suddenly be able to kick so much ass, which is exactly how he's presented in this movie, a nobody that everyone underestimates. If there were any issues I had with the movie, it probably would have been maybe with some of the story. The story is definitely a generic one that we've seen before, and I don't want to compare it too much with the John Wick films, but it is written by the same writer of those movies, Derek Kolstad, and it has a lot of the same team behind those movies. So I think it's a fair comparison. And it basically has the same plot that John Wick does, minus a few details. Guy who tried to leave behind a dark, violent past, gets himself tangled up with some bad guys and has to come out of retirement and take some names and kick some ass. Nobody is interesting, however, because it definitely takes a bit more of a comedic tone, but at the same time, it's a bit more grounded than John Wick is because of our lead character. The pacing of the movie is definitely a bit slower and less kinetic than the John Wick films, but it makes sense that this kind of movie has this kind of pacing because it's reflective of our lead character. This guy is not John Wick. He's definitely a lot more older, he's more weathered, and he's been out of retirement for a longer time, I assume. And when he gets in a fight, you can see how hard he's actually struggling, and how every hit might actually be the hit that takes him out. But it gives these action scenes a more gritty and intense feel to them, because at times you're not actually sure if he's going to be the one that walks away victorious. The villain of this movie as well wasn't anything special, but it also kind of worked in a weird way because he was such a tongue-in-cheek character. He was just a Russian guy who loved singing and dancing and then would occasionally brutally murder someone. And I think that's all he needed to be in this movie. It matched the movie's fun tone, and this movie very much feels like an old 80s or 90s action flick. We didn't necessarily need a villain that had a rich backstory and motivations we could understand, because in a movie like this, let's be real, the bad guys are essentially there just as cannon fodder. And speaking of cannon fodder, the action scenes were a lot of fun in this movie. They were really well filmed, well choreographed, and pretty creative at times as well. Another reason I thought the action scenes were done well was because of Odenkirk's character mentioning he misses some of the action and seems to get a sense of catharsis when he delivers brutal justice to an evil character. And you can tell the satisfaction he gets from some of these action scenes, and it works because it's the same satisfaction we're getting as viewers. The third act of this film as well was such a fun, satisfying ride. Without spoiling too much, I just want to say, whoever's idea it was to have an action trio consisting of Bob Odenkirk, RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan, and Doc Brown from Back to the Future, give that man a raise immediately. Christopher Lloyd especially was just such a joy to watch in some scenes, and you can tell he had a lot of fun with the movie. So all in all, Nobody was by no means some unique masterpiece, but what it was a fun time with some nice, lovely, brutal action scenes. So Nobody gets a 7.5 out of 10 for me. And before I end this video, I just wanted to share a bit of trivia about this movie. Something I found really interesting while I was doing a bit of research on this movie was I didn't realize how personal of a movie this was for Bob Odenkirk himself. In an interview with Vulture.com, Odenkirk himself said that, "I think most people watching this movie will not realize the level of autobiography that is in it," and continues to talk about how he helped come up with the idea for this movie due to his own horrible experiences of home invasions, one of which involved him having a gun held to his head, and he recalls the conflict of not knowing what the right thing to do was, which is actually how this movie Nobody begins. After he began to flesh out a script for this movie with writer Derek Kolstad, he was so committed to playing this role that even in his late 50s and lack of experience with action roles that required a lot of physicality, he began training for the next 2 years to get into shape and be able to do his own choreography for this movie. Odenkirk talks about his time training at 8711 Action Design Studios, which is a studio that was founded by stunt coordinators and now acclaimed directors Chad Stahelski, who has done all the John Wick movies, and David Leitch, who co-directed the first John Wick movie with Stahelski and then went on to do Atomic Blonde, Deadpool 2, and Hobbs & Shaw. This studio specializes on training actors to learn fight choreography and stunt coordination, and I hope it really begins to grow more because they have some fantastic results. Bob Odenkirk reflects on his training there, and he says that the hardest part was not the physical exertion, it was the embarrassment. He then talks about how there were other actors also training there who were just much better than him. He talks about seeing Keanu Reeves and Halle Berry training there for John Wick 3 and fighting like 12 different guys at once. And also veteran action star Jason Statham training for Hobbs & Shaw, kicking a bunch of ass. Meanwhile, in the small corner of the room, he was there practicing his one-on-one fights and struggling really hard. So I really just wanted to praise him for his dedication and commitment because the results of all his hard work was really reflected in the movie. So Bob Odenkirk, good on you, man, and I hope I get to see you kick some more ass in the future. Maybe a sequel, who knows? Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I really enjoyed talking about this one with you guys, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later, guys.